Welcome to Delicious Mess from Suffolk Public Library. I am so lucky to be filming here at the Now You're Cooking Culinary Studio with Miss Debra, who's going to give us a great program about Juneteenth and soul food cooking. So if you'd like to give us some information, we are ready to listen.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming to Now You're Cooking. And basically about soul food. Soul food is whatever soul food means to you. What food makes you happy, the foods from your culture, whatever your culture is. So it just doesn't necessarily have to be African American culture or Jamaican culture, whatever culture is that you're from is what makes you feel good. But specifically, we're talking about Juneteenth today. And Juneteenth, typically in Texas, Juneteenth has been celebrated for years and years and years. Just last year was the first year that it was made to be a federal holiday, which was exciting. So now we're beginning to celebrate it more around the country, but it was always celebrated in Texas. And for Juneteenth, there's certain things that they will always eat. So barbecue is one of the big things. Red drinks, so like strawberry soda, sorrel hibiscus tea, red velvet cake they always have. Today we're going to make something called Texas tea cake, which is not red. It's not red at all. So I was like, well, why is it not red? I don't know why it's not red. I guess we could make it red if we wanted to. But and basically the Texas tea cake, the ingredients are pretty simple. Based on what I'm seeing of the ingredients is using what you have. So to me, that's what soul food means to me. You know, sometimes you look in your refrigerator and the kids are like, there's nothing to eat, but there's ingredients.
Yes.
So you can kind of make, whatever's in there. There's certain things that you keep in your household that you always eat, or some things that when you're having a bad day make you feel better. Even if it's just mashed potatoes. Or, depending on where you're from, it could be grits, or some people like rice, and that's their dish. So,
all carbs.
Why is that? Inquiring want to know. But because of slavery, people ate what was growing at the time. So now it has a fancy term called the locavore. But before it was just, you ate whatever was growing. So right now here in our area, strawberries, well, they're about to go out now because they've been growing really nice and pretty.
End of strawberry season.
End of strawberry season. But blueberries are coming in now. And we here at Now You're Cooking, we're growing squash, and then we'll have tomatoes coming out of everywhere, and corn and butter beans and all things like that. So you ate those until they were gone. And then whatever was growing in the fall, that's what you ate. So, like I said, back then that was what was for dinner.
Yeah.
Now it's a fancy term. So that really was, as far as soul food goes, is how it started. You eat what you have. So our ingredients are pretty simple: eggs, flour, sugar, baking soda, nutmeg, and vanilla. But who would have ever just thrown that together? And I'm sure the sugar helps to make it taste better. Yeah. Or be more palatable.
So you could have these Texas tea cakes with your hibiscus tea.
True. And your barbecue. Yes, and your barbecue.
Always.
Yes,
barbecue.
ma'am.
All right. Well, we'd love to see you cook, so I will let you get on with the recipe.
All right. So, pardon my brain right here. All right, so we're gonna have 1.5 cups of sugar. And we gotta make sure that before we start, we always make sure we have all of our ingredients. Sugar, 2 eggs, my flour's down here, you can't see it. Baking soda, salt, it's right here, nutmeg, and vanilla. Okay? All right. So 1 3/4 cups of sugar. I might need more. That's a lot of sugar. Oh yeah. I don't need more sugar. I'll get more sugar in a minute. I'll use what I got right now. I use 2 more quarters of that. 2 eggs. gonna make more noisy. Knew I had a shell. I'm gonna mix that up really good. And you can use a mixer if you want to. You don't necessarily have to. Get that all mixed up until the sugar's almost yellow. And I tried to catch everything on my list, but I forgot 2 sticks of butter. My dish would be kind of funny without the butter. And a little bit more sugar than I needed. Thank you. All right, I'll mix that in a little bit more. Right, put it in like that. 3 cups of flour. Level it off. Make sure you don't have too much flour. That mixed in there. And you're not cooking if you're not making a mess. So I guess I'm on the right show, right?
Yes.
Alright, this is getting a little bit harder to stir. So I'm gonna add some butter for the fat, make it a little bit easier. And whenever I cook, I always put everything to the side that I'm finished with so that I don't forget and put it in again.
And your butter is room temperature.
It's room temperature butter, yep. And it's unsalted. Okay?
Control the amount of salt.
And control the amount of salt. And then for baking, like even at home, I don't cook with salted butter, so I can control the salt. But with baking, you always use unsalted butter, unless the recipe calls for it. Because baking is so scientific, if you don't, and the recipe's been formulated for salted or unsalted, it can really take things kind of left. But the recipe does call for salt, so it's got a half teaspoon of salt. Do that over here. Okay, 1/4 tea of nutmeg. This is so interesting. It makes you wonder, like, why would you put these things together? And a teaspoon of vanilla. And a half tea of baking soda. Now I've gotten it dirty. Switch to my hands because it's a little tough with the spatula. Which is probably how they did it back then anyway. That or wooden spoon or hands up until a certain point. Feels good. But I wouldn't want to do it bare hand. My grandma used to say, "You're that girl who doesn't like to get her hands dirty." And I would say, "Yes, ma'am." Whereas my sister, she would get her hands dirty and didn't even care. Not me. I'd be like, eh. So it's binding together, but also on the bottom it's still kind of crumbly. So just making sure we mix it in So I think the whole, my grandma used to tell me that as long as they had flour and butter, flour and milk, they could make anything. Um, and if you get fresh vegetables from this person and meat from somebody else, depending on the size of your family, with flour being filling, you always had some type of pastry, as my grandma calls it, to go with everything. So my mom, my family grew up here in Chesapeake. She eats peas and what she calls pie bread, which is really like the dumpling. And there were 8 of them. So when you had 4 girls and 4 boys, so the 4 boys were like 8 boys, if you think about it. And they weren't little guys either. So, when you have that many kids to feed, you got to make sure that you have some type of carbohydrate that's going to swell. Really, if you think about it. So, we're not, since, like you think people in South Carolina will use rice a lot because the rice grows there, or like they have corn grits because they had corn. So you use whatever you have to make it work, to feed your family. All right, so I'm trying to get all these dry spots in. I'm probably not going to be able to get it all, but it didn't be too bad. All I'm doing is just gently kneading it. I don't want to overwork it. Okay. And with the Texas tea cake, unlike the other recipes, when you make like a bread dough or a pizza or something, you don't flour your surface. I don't know why. They said don't, so I'm not going to. It's not sticking that bad. Probably because my hands aren't that warm. A lot of times if your hands are really super warm, it'll make it stick. But I'm going to stop playing with it now so I can, before I curse myself, if you will. All right. So, make it a little bit smaller. We're just going to pinch them into small pieces. That's probably too thick. I'll make it a little bit smaller. So almost like my grandmother, she could, because she baked bread, she would say, just pinch it off in your fingertips. And then she'd go, that's too big. But you know how like certain people just have that touch? She just had the touch. Okay, I'm gonna get a tray. And this is non-stick. Usually we'll use parchment because it's easy to clean. So we're gonna put those in the oven since it has disappeared. Put them in the oven on 350. Depends on your oven. We have commercial ovens, so it's gonna be a little bit different. But for about 10 minutes. Then we're gonna take them out and taste them. Quick. Yeah, quick and easy. Yeah. Because my family grew up. We had dessert with every meal. Well, something sweet, really. Yeah. We didn't call it dessert. Just something sweet. After you eat, it's like, now I want something sweet. So that, it's a little cookie or something, and it's not going to go bad if you don't eat it that night, or if you want to put them in have them for lunch in the morning, or somebody comes over, if you have some company, as my grandma used to say, the folks just stop by.
Oh, it smells delicious.
Yes, still a little bit warm. So these we push down. These we left up a little bit. Now, do you have a particular type of cookie you like? You like flat cookies, fluffy cookies?
I think I like fluffy cookies.
I think I'm more of a flat cookie. So you can grab whichever one.
So then, like a flat cookie will be it'll have a little crunch to it.
Yes. I think it's because I'm weird with texture.
Yeah.
And if the inside is like gummy, then I don't like it. They smell great, guys.
Delicious.
Good.
Now who's going to clean up this mess?
Well, the cook always cleans.
Oh, no.
Clean as you go. That's awfully good.
I taste the nutmeg.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to say. Maybe that's what carries up the flavor. That and the vanilla. That's really good.
so we can bring these to the barbecue for Juneteenth.